So it's Dan Blake here from the JazzHop podcast, and it's the December edition, and I'm here with a legend,
Ooh.
a legendary man, straight out of the massive, huge worldwide collective, the one and only, Us3 are in the building, and I'm here with Geoff Wilkinson. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
Wow, it's a pleasure. I'm really, really happy to have you.
Thank you.
Sure. So how's your day been so far?
Cold.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As we were just talking, I was in Sweden and it was very cold, and it's still cold in the UK as well when I've come back.
Yeah.
Sure. So JazzHop, the December edition, when this goes out, Christmas vibes.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Christmas man?
Yeah, obviously it's a time for family, isn't it? So that's good.
Yeah, sure.
I had to send my daughter a list of, she was like nagging me the other day, what do you want for Christmas, Dad? Kind of send her a list of things. So I don't know exactly what she's going to get.
Sure.
We'll see. I've already got hers.
Yeah, and you got the Christmas colours on, so you got a bit of red there going on. First off, just speaking of family, I always like to start it with that as well. How is I know you had a few health problems. How's the health?
Yeah,
how's
good.
family? How's everything?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah. It was a long time ago, 2014, when I got ill, but I'm good. I'm good now, thanks.
Yeah, you look well as well, man. God
Thanks.
bless, blessings. And let's get into Geoff. Growing up back in the day, how did you get into this whole music energy? Just tell us about your background as a kid.
Okay, I've got two brothers. One is 3 years younger, and one is 3 years older. And my older brother, Chris. That's probably where I first heard jazz, actually, coming out of his bedroom. He did have some Art Blakey tracks, which just sounded like a complete racket to me at the time, when I was like 12 or 13 or something. I was like, what is this? But later on, when I got into it, I actually recognised some stuff that I'd heard blasting out of his bedroom, which was weird. And I used to go to gigs with him when I was a kid. From when I was 14, I think the first gig I ever went to with him. So I think I inherited a bit of my musical taste from him, really. But really, my taste kind of exploded a bit when I was a student. I was a student in Huddersfield for 3 years, and I started DJing then. And that was 1982. Which was an absolutely seminal year for hip-hop that year. We had things like Grandmaster Flash's The Message. There was a lot of electro coming out then, like E.C. Boogie, Man Parrish's Hip-Hop Bebop Don't Stop. It was a really interesting time because there was a lot of new things coming through, and I was playing all that stuff because it was exciting, and as well as a lot of jazz funk stuff as well, like Donald Birdie type stuff, Lonnie Liston Smith. So it was kind of only a small step backwards when you start looking at what people like Donald Byrd and that did. You start listening to what they've done before, and then you start discovering the jazz, really, and that's how it happened to me.
Wow, so those were some of the early influences, you would say?
Yeah, and then I moved to London in 1983, so I was quite involved in the whole jazz dance scene in the mid-'80s. I used to go out a lot, sort of, when people were dressing up in suits and white shirts and black ties and dancing the whole night to kind of Blue Note-y stuff. That was wicked. That was a really good time.
I pictured it like I was there,
It was that scene that developed into the kind of whole Talking Loud thing, and when the hip-hop element started coming in as well. And I was just sort of with that all the way through, really.
Well, you're when that element started to come, take yourself back to the time of the excitement level you was at when you first discovered it.
Well, there was a lot of, when the jazz dance scene happened, it was a bit sort of retro in that DJs were just playing older jazz stuff. And I think that influenced a lot of younger British jazz musicians who started playing in like back rooms of pubs and stuff. So I used to go out to a lot of gigs, and a lot of the people that I saw then are all on Hand on the Torch. People like Steve Williamson, Tony Remy, Ed Jones, Dennis Rollins. I saw them all when they started in the back room of pubs when there was hardly any little venues to play in London. So that was great. And they inspired me just as much as the old records did as well. So, I wanted to work with them, and working with them was like a real big thing for me.
Wow. And you know what makes me smile? It's like, that's community, isn't it? Music's
Exactly,
about community. When you discover that community in the raw stages where you're just doing it, in the early stages,
And when the opportunity came, when we got a chance to be on Blue Note, I felt a responsibility that those people had influenced me. I felt a responsibility to put those people on the record as well, rather than working with a lot of older jazz names. And we certainly had the opportunity to do that, but we turned it down. That was a conscious decision to kind of showcase what was going on in the British jazz scene with younger guys as well. Because at the time, there was still a bit of a vibe of coming out of the 80s and the 90s. There was still, jazz had a bit of an image problem, you might say, at the time. It was still thought it had become kind of intellectualized, and a lot of people would think it was an old man's music, and we wanted to get away from that by showing that there was a lot of young cats playing this stuff, and they were really, really good. So that's why we put them all on Hand and Such.
Yeah, legendary. The shine them, it ain't just dinner jazz.
Exactly.
There's more to it.
Yeah.
And this is the question I like to ask as well. Like, where you at today? Looking back, when you first started, did you envision it happening? Did you envision?
Hell no.
Some people are like, I really get this is what's going to happen, vision board, but
No. When we made Cantaloop, we just thought it was a funky little record for that kind of Talking Loud crew, if you like. Nobody anticipated that it was going to have the commercial success that it had. The only person that did was Bill Diggins, who was our manager at the time, and me and Mel, my production partner at the time. The very first meeting, I'll never forget this, the very first meeting we had with Bill was at the Milestone Hotel in Kensington, and he said to us, the album hadn't come out by then. He'd heard the album, he'd been played it by our lawyer at the time, and he said to us, Cantaloop is going to be a top 10 single in America, and you're going to sell 1 million albums in America. We thought he was completely mad. This was a long, long time before it happened. But we decided when we came out of that meeting, we literally walked down the road laughing our heads off, thinking we've got to go with this guy, because he was interested in managing us, because he kind of believes it more than the label does even. And he was right. He made it come true. He was a brilliant manager.
Wow, Cantaloop, Flip, Fantasia. While we're talking, I was going to bring it up later, but while we're on the subject, we might as well get it out the way right now. But what a massive, massive global smash!
You know what? It was a very slow burn though.
Yeah,
because it first came out in about October '92, and then that was around the time that we met Bill. And he kind of pulled it.
It was on October the 10th, I believe. It was released, 92. I saw.
He pulled it from the schedule.
Wow.
The first place I ever went was Japan, which was in December '92. And we did a couple of PAs there. It was just me, Rasan, the rapper, and Gerard Presenter, the trumpet player. And yeah, when we were there, I think what happened was the Japanese label realized there was no album to kind of follow it, because it had started to take off in Japan. And I think the Japanese label got on to the Americans and kind of bullied them into changing what was a singles deal to start with into an album deal. Because pretty soon when we came back early in 1993, that singles deal turned into an 8-album deal.
Wow.
So then the race was on to get the album done.
And when the tune was, doing what it was doing, take me back to the recording session when you first got a record together, like even to get that record. Do you remember?
Yeah. When I first met the Blue Note people, they didn't, and told them what I'd like to do, like, going in asking them to let you have the rights to sample anything you like from their back catalogue was a pretty radical idea, really. And they didn't jump at it straight away. I think they were intrigued by the idea. So they decided to give us some money to do some demos. So they gave us like a couple of grand to do some demos. And we did 2 tracks, and one track was Cantaloop, which hardly changed from the demo version to the version that everybody knows. It's the same trumpet solo. The only thing that changed was we got Rasan to rewrite the 3rd verse. But the other track that we did didn't even make it on the album. So we kind of got one right and one completely wrong right from the word go. But that was done in March 1992. Exactly 2 years later, in March 1994, it was in the top 10 in America. That's what I mean by it was a slow burn. It seemed to take ages to us. It seemed to take ages before it really hit.
How was like, I always think of when, as a musician myself, when you think of times like when you're on the come up, you're doing your music and you're just hoping that this can be life and this can be my full time. I don't have to work another job or do this kind of thing. How was stuff for you like in life when you was waiting for it as like a slow burn or a big record? How was life in general? Was it hard times or was it already all good?
We were just busy because another thing that Bill did, our manager, he came to us and he said, this was when we were building up to putting the album out. He said to us, the record company are asking when, what's happening with the live shows. And me and Mel looked at each other and was like, what live shows? Because we were producers, really. We were 2 guys in a basement studio who made an album using samples and a whole cast of thousands of different musicians, 3 different vocalists. We hadn't even thought about putting a band together, doing it live. We hadn't even considered that. And all of a sudden, we were faced with how are we going to do this, basically. And to be honest, we didn't want to do it at first because it was going to be like, how are we going to do this? It's going to be difficult with samples. So we had a bit of a face-off with Bill and he threatened to walk away, actually, if we didn't put a band together to do it. So we thought about it and we, at the first kind of editions of Us3, if you like, the live band, were kind of semi-live. But it worked. We had a lot of live players and some backing tapes as well. And we did a showcase gig at Ronnie Scott's and that was just wild. And then we did a little tour in summer 93, went back to Japan again. Actually, the first proper live gig that we did was in Osaka in Japan.
Wow.
And we set the band up, did the sound check and everything, went out for something to eat. When we came back into the club later on, we came back in through the back entrance into the dressing room. When we were sat in the dressing room, we could hear the crowd chanting, Us3, Us3, Us3. We're thinking, what's going on? I came out and just peeked through into the club and people were like shouting and going mad. And me and Mel just looked at each other and we were like, what have we done? Honestly, it was like a Beatles gig in the 60s in Hamburg or something. It was crazy. Wow. And from that day, we never looked back.
Never looked back.
Really. The band has had different incarnations since then. But yeah, it turned into a real live monster. And we did a lot of gigs, 1993 and 1994. If you look at the Us3 website, which is us3.com, there's a full list of all the gigs, a full archive list of all the gigs that we did. And you could see throughout 93 and 94, from summer 93, we were touring literally everywhere in the world for about 18 months. It was crazy.
Wow. And thinking about, I want to know, all that touring, all those shows, what stands out in your memory as one of the most incredible shows where you got to perform that record, Cantaloop, Flip Fantasia? Where was the performance where you remember to this day, iconic?
There's a couple of venues which weren't at the time, they were later. I remember the last gig of the tour promoting the second album was in the Congress Hall in Warsaw in Poland. which is an amazing building. You should Google that and have a look at it.
Sure.
It used to be the Communist Party's great central hall, kind of. It's completely circular. The most ornate venue we've ever played in. It's kind of like their Albert Hall.
Sure.
That was incredible. That was crazy. Absolutely crazy. It was part of the Jazz Jamboree Festival, which happens every year in Poland, or used to. And the guy who was the organizer of the festival said to me, it went down a storm, by the way. Again, the crowd was going absolutely nuts. The guy who organized the festival said to me after the gig, it was the second most crazy gig they'd ever put on. So I was like, well, what was the first then? And he said Miles Davis in 1974. So that's not bad, being second to Miles, really.
Wow. And I do believe you met Herbie Hancock, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we met him a number of times, yeah. The first time was at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 1993.
Wow.
And he's always been really cool. Wow. For a long while, he would play Cantaloop Island and introduce it as a track by Us3, kind of tongue-in-cheek, obviously. And I've seen him do that as well.
Incredible. And give us I would say, I'll call this like a tour story. I love a tour story. Like, a moment when your career, you gave us like a performance story. Give us like a moment on tour where you was like, yeah, man, I love this life on the road. This is a vibe. I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. Give us one of those.
I was going to say that the other gig that I'd never forget was when we headlined the Shanghai International Jazz Festival.
Amazing.
In China, obviously. That was in 2009, so that was quite a lot later on. But we also played in Beijing at the time, and we had a day off there, so we went up the Great Wall of China.
Oh,
and that was just to be standing on the Great Wall of China. That really had one of those moments there. What am I doing here? That was incredible. That it took me there.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that story. And talking about the year 1993, it's such a iconic year for just hip hop influence that
absolutely.
Year. We're talking about big shouts to the legend Souls of Mischief. They came out that year.
Mm-hmm.
You had the legendary Wu-Tang Clan, Tribe Called Quest. It was I think even Biggie come out with his first album that year. There's a lot going on. So
that's when hip hop was really exciting. There was a bit of a no holds barred kind of attitude in hip hop, because in the late 80s it had become all about sampling James Brown, really.
Sure.
But there's a couple of things that came along that changed the game. One of them was obviously De La Soul's first album.
Oh, yeah.
And Prince Paul produced that, and the things that he sampled on that was just a wild cross-section of music, all kinds of different things. And I think that opened hip-hop producers' heads, like, oh, we can use other stuff. We don't have to use James Brown, kind of, And it got wild after that. That's when the floodgates were open, really. So there was a lot of creativity in hip-hop then.
Sure. Crate digging, took to the next level for sure. Also, I want to know a bit about, working with Blue Note Records. Tell us about the whole Blue Note record movement.
Yeah, wow. Well, Bruce Lundvall, who sadly passed away now, who was the president of Blue Note, was like my surrogate father, kind of. He was hilarious. He was so funny. He was such a nice guy. I've had some wild nights out with Bruce, both in London and in New York. Mad. He once took me to a restaurant in New York that had no menu.
Oh, wow.
You could order anything you want, anything you wanted, and they would make it. I can't remember what this place was called. I've tried to find it, like in other times that I've been back to New York, but I've never been able to find it, so I don't know what it was.
Maybe it's called Eat What You Like.
Something like that. That was crazy, yeah. And I've been to all the major jazz clubs in New York with Bruce. It was funny going to the Village Vanguard with him because he had to pay to get in. I thought, what? They made him pay to get in? And he said to me, he was laughing, and he said he's always had to pay to get in. They never let him in free there. But Jackie McLean was on that night, and obviously Jackie saw Bruce, gave him a wave, and came over and sat talking to us as well.
Sure.
I went to see Diane Reeves with Bruce at the Blue Note club in New York. They did let him in. They let us in free. And when we walked in, Diane saw him and started singing about Bruce on stage, which was quite funny. And then she came over and sat with us, had a chat with him. He was one of those record company guys who was like a proper music guy.
Yeah.
Everybody really loved him.
Yeah, you can feel that, can't you? You can feel that when someone's a proper music person.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah,
There was one time when I was in his office, and he was pointing at the wall, at a space on the wall, and he was saying to me, "Look, Geoff, look at that, look at that." And there was nothing there on the wall. And he was just going, "Look at that, Geoff, look at that." And I said to him, "Bruce, have you been drinking? Are you okay?" And he said to me, "That's the space for the first ever platinum disc for Blue Note, and it's for Hand on the Torch." He said, "It's just gone platinum." And I was astounded by that. I didn't know that. I'm still surprised at that no other album before Hand on the Torch had sold over 1 million copies in America. We were the first one to do it.
You know, congratulations on such an iconic achievement.
Yeah, that was cool.
You know, the days when record sales were, you know, they were real sales.
When people bought music.
Yeah. This is it. That's what I was going to say. It's like the industry's changed so much.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your thoughts on the current state of the JazzHop scene, the music scene, the industry? What's your sport? You know, it's got streaming, all this stuff.
The streaming thing, it's a double-edged sword, really, because streaming is great from a consumer point of view, to have the whole history of music at your fingertips on a computer is incredible, or on your phone. It's just incredible. But from an artist's point of view, it's a nightmare because the payouts are so terrible. So it's become much harder to make a living in the music industry nowadays. And, you know, I've been asked a number of times, what would your advice be to someone starting out in the music business now? My advice would be, don't do it. It's much harder. Or if you do it, treat it as a hobby, because it's much harder to make a living out of it unless you do a lot of live shows and sell a lot of merch at shows as well. You can't rely on you couldn't live off streaming. You'd have to have like enormous hits to live off the money from streaming nowadays. So like I said, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Straight talking as well, you know, from a man that's so experienced, you know, and sold so many records worldwide. And yeah, just seeing the shift. So up and coming musicians definitely take some of that advice and take it in. Dan Blake here with JazzHop, and I just want to take the time to say thank you to +44 and Amazon Music for letting us use their wonderful location to record this episode of the podcast. Also, I want to touch on the Hand on the Torch album. You know, one of your classics, your first album, and it was incredible. Just tell us when you reflect on that album, what do you think of when you think of that album now?
I think of a lot of the hard work and traveling that we did, really, because there was a lot of promotion that we needed to do, because Cantaloop became so popular absolutely right across the world. The traveling, the demand to see us was crazy. Everybody wanted to talk to you. Everybody wanted to interview you. And when we'd be out on tour, we'd be literally doing 6 or 7 hours of interviews during the day, as well as the shows at night. So it was an exhausting time. If people think that it's easy or whatever, when you get a hit, it's not. The workload just like trebles, kind of, really.
Do you think, I was speaking about this off camera, and I still think the importance of having a hit record is just, I think it's an incredible club. And I've always as a musician and myself, it's something that I hope to achieve in my career, a hit record. Just so something that when I'm no longer here, like a song that will be remembered that never dies. And I feel like for yourself, you've achieved that. Yeah. And to have a record that never dies and it just...
Well, it still surprises me.
You know
it still surprises me that that it's still got legs and it's
Yeah.
still people still say that it sounds fresh, after 30
Fresh,
odd
man.
years,
Fresh, man.
which is,
Yeah.
you don't know when
You
you
don't
do
know.
something like that, you don't know. How can you know?
Yeah. But it's a point because it's just, you get musicians nowadays, I don't know, they'll be in the studio, I need a hit, trying to force a hit.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
it
really
don't work,
not,
does it?
yeah, I don't think so. That's not the way to do it,
You don't know if you're making a hit.
If I knew, I don't think there is a formula, but if I knew the formula, I would have done it again. It's hard. You have to, it's timing.
Yeah.
Our manager Bill's had a catchphrase. He used to say, timing is everything. And I think we were in the right place at the right time then. Because we weren't the first people to fuse hip hop and jazz together. But we sort of rode the crest of a wave, really, at the time. A lot of other people were doing it at the same time as well. It was kind of seen as a fashionable thing, and we were just there at the right time.
Oh, and it's just, because, you're making the music, you're there at the right time, and you're just enjoying it, right? You're enjoying the process, right?
But I think it's interesting what's happened since then, because it's usually because we used to get called acid jazz a lot as well. And usually sort of fashions in music tend to go in cycles. Things come back into fashion, But there's never been an acid jazz revival, really, which is kind of weird after 30 years. And I think there's a reason for that. And the reason is that one of the things that we set out to do was to sort of try and repopularize jazz, if you like. And I think that's worked because jazz is more infused in popular music now than it ever has been before. If you look at things like, if Kendrick Lamar's first album had come out in the 90s, it would have been called acid jazz. If Gregory Porter had come out in the 90s, he would have been called acid jazz. Even someone like Ray, a lot of her stuff is jazzy. Jazz. Or Celeste,
Oh, you're saying some incredible names there,
It would have, a lot of that would have been called acid jazz back in the time, but it's not called that now. And that's what I'm saying, that jazz has become infused in popular music now.
So true.
And I think that's great. I think that's really good.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, as you were saying, it's infused in popular music. Enough said, it's everywhere. It's spreading. It never dies, And you dropped the first album in 10 years, Soundtrack.
Yes, this year.
Yeah, 2025. An amazing project, man. I'm really enjoying it. I've been listening to records like, I believe it's The Long Way Home.
Okay.
Also, Resist the Rat Race.
Yep.
Been enjoying Narco and Footsteps in the Dark. It's even got kind of like a jazz grime feel to it,
Yeah, I wanted to do something a bit different because I hadn't released an album in over 10 years. And I've been doing mainly library music in a lot of different genres in the last 10 years. And I'd done a couple of trap albums, just straight ahead trap stuff, really. And I really liked playing with the drum patterns on that because a lot of trap stuff is you get sort of sections of where it's quite bare.
Yeah, sure.
And then bursts of kind of intensity or like rhythmic complexity, which is really interesting. That's kind of contradiction between the two things. But musically, that stuff is quite bare over the top of it. And at the same time I was working on that, one day I just listened to Miles Davis' album, Sketches of Spain. And the horn arrangements on that are by Gil Evans, who did 3 albums with Miles and some absolutely classic albums of his own. He was an absolutely brilliant horn arranger and had a real unique style as well. And one of the characteristics of his style of horn arrangements were that it's similar to the trap stuff in that a lot of his stuff is really open harmonically, and then you get bursts of like intensity. And I thought, what would the trap stuff be like with something like that, a big horn section on top? What would it sound like? And I searched around on the internet trying to find examples of what was in my head at the time, and I couldn't find any examples. And that idea, I couldn't get it out of my head then. It wouldn't let go of me. So I thought, I'm going to have to do this
Yeah.
myself. So I did.
Yeah. Really good album. I'm enjoying it. What's the feedback been like out there from the people?
Yeah, the feedback from the press in America has been really good. We had double page spreads in Downbeat magazine and Jazz magazine as well. That was fantastic. It surprised me a bit that there was still so much love in the American press for Us3 still,
Sure.
which was really nice.
Sure. And would you plan to maybe go out and get back out on tour, stuff like that? Get back out on the road a little bit.
I don't know. I thought I'd get to the end of the year, then have a think about. Get Christmas and New Year out of the way and think about what I'm going to do next year. But yeah, it's put the possibility of another album in my head, really.
Yeah, sure the people would love that, to see you back out there, even doing selected shows, around the world. People would love that.
Yeah,
Probably not your same schedule you had back in
No, I wouldn't want to do that now. I'm a bit older now.
Yeah, sure. But 2026, shaping up to be a big year. Everybody go and get Soundtrack. It's out now, can you get it physical copies as well?
There's no physical copies, but it's on Bandcamp.
Brilliant.
So you can buy MP3s there.
Yes, you can buy MP3s, people. Bandcamp, support the cause there. Brilliant site there. And I want to know, what does JazzHop mean to you?
Well, it's a fusion of jazz and hip-hop, isn't it, really? I said earlier that... about we used to get called acid jazz. I've never called Us3 acid jazz. I always called us hip-hop jazz because it's a fusion of hip-hop and jazz. That's always what I wanted to do. I think one of the things that made us different back then was that we were influenced more by the classic jazz, that kind of classic 60s blue note sound, really, the hard bop soul jazz kind of thing. Because a lot of people who mix the two things up tend to mix it up with this kind of 70s funkier jazz stuff, really. We were going a bit more back to the roots, if you like. But yeah, it's, I don't think it should be a narrow description. JazzHop should be a very wide church, I think. Sure. Again, I always said anyone making a combination of jazz and hip-hop, nobody's going to do it the same because there's so many different kind of subgenres of jazz and so many different subgenres of hip-hop that the ways to fuse the two things together is endless to me, really. And that's what Soundtrack was about, really, about fusing trap beats with a kind of 18-piece horn section playing Gil Evans-style arrangements. That was something that nobody's ever done before. So I thought... It was worth doing just simply because it was unique. Yeah,
very fresh album. Make sure you check that out, people. And some songs within, say, the jazz and hip hop scene, that's inspired you, that we could play on the show, like soundtracks to, if you was in the car, we could play a couple of these songs and they would salute you, man. Just name some records for us, man.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that spring to mind immediately from back in the day. I think if anyone writes a sort of history of jazz and hip-hop together, probably the one that they'll miss is kind of hiding in plain sight a bit, really.
Okay.
Which is LL Cool J's Going Back to Cali.
Okay.
Which came way before everyone was talking about jazz and hip-hop together. Produced by Rick Rubin, absolute legend. Booming 808 beats, big band horn stabs, big sax solo on it. It's got all the elements there. But again, this is before anyone was talking about jazz and hip hop together. Going Back to Cali is a phenomenal tune. And actually, another one, again from the 80s, would be Young MC from his first album, Stone Cold Rhyming. There's a track on there called Non-Stop. Where it's like a sort of stream of consciousness rap. It's not in a verse chorus format. There's no chorus to it. He just raps from start to finish, non-stop, which is why it's called Non-Stop. But the break is Wes Montgomery's, is a loop of Wes Montgomery's version of the Beatles' A Day in the Life, which is a lovely little guitar loop. And that's the first hip-hop track that I ever recognised the jazz sample in.
Okay.
So that was kind of quite influential on me.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Wow, give me a couple more, man. We're gonna play this on the show, man. We're gonna play all these records. We're gonna play them all.
Well, another one which was obviously groundbreaking, but a bit more less underground, was obviously Gang Starr's "Words I Manifest," which is a classic.
One of my favorite rappers. Yeah. What's your, just as we're speaking on Words I Manifest, on DJ Premier was over. I think he was over a couple of days ago. Big him up. Gang Starr really brung me over to the jazz and kind of hip hop world, and I was so inspired by Guru. I was fortunate enough to get to meet him before he passed, and I hold to that day the autograph he writ on a piece of paper for me. Dan, stay true. I always reminisce those words when I'm writing a new verse or something. Have you had any encounters with Guru or your thoughts on Guru?
Well,
please tell some stories, man. Yeah.
Summer '93, there was a kind of hip hop jazz night at the Montreux Jazz Festival, which was Us3, Jazzmatazz, Diggable Planets, Greg Osby, who was working with rappers at the time. So it was like everyone who was really doing it all on one bill in one night, which was phenomenal.
That's sensational. And what's your memories of Guru as a person? Like,
he was cool. Yeah, I've had a drink with him a number of times. Yeah.
Oh man, I love it, man. So yeah, you heard them exclusive stories there, my people. Any new artists that you want us to check out, or people that we should look out for, or anyone you're working with currently?
I don't know about new ones. Actually, I'll mention this. My favorite rapper of all time is Nas.
Wow, look at this. That's my number one rapper of all time. Nas.
Yeah.
The GOAT,
There's
isn't
one
he?
person who I would kill to work with. I mean, he's done jazzy stuff before, but he's worked
100%.
with some phenomenal producers.
Yeah.
And obviously his father was a trumpet player as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wake up in New York City. I was young and running wild.
That's right. A blues track.
Where I
that
had my
was fantastic.
first child. Yeah.
See, that you could say that's a mixture of jazz and hip hop, even though it was more leaning to the blues.
Yeah.
But no one's ever done anything like that before.
What a track, man. Yeah, that was like, I think that was one of, when I've done my JazzHop show, that was the first record I played, showing the comparisons between the two.
Yeah.
As an MC, for me, he's the greatest of all time. This debate goes on in the barbershop all the time, but I'm just like, look, he's just the GOAT. He's the poetical genius, making Illmatic at that young age in the Queensbridge projects, Large Professor on the production. And, I'm even going to do some kind of, because I've never interviewed Nas, and that's one of my goals is to get an interview. Maybe one, I don't know, interview first, maybe one day work with him. We're going to try and make this happen. Get the collaboration guy, and then because he's in a flow right now where he's been dropping so many albums. He's about to drop
his Mass Appeal
label. And it's like, you don't know when you don't want him to stop, because he just had such a run. Nas, don't go away now,
Did you see his last gigs in London when he played with Wu-Tang Clan?
I was there.
Yeah, me too.
I was there. I was at the O2.
Killer.
Yeah. Killed it, didn't
fantastic. Still his live show, he's still killing it.
Man, yeah, he was fresh that day. And what I loved about that show, if you remember, when they was coming back and forth, it was like, the Wu-Tang would come out and play a record, Nas would play a record.
Yeah,
it was
towards the end, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that, swinging back and forth and their energy on stage. Yeah, it's real fresh to see Nas still going at it and still strong. And just long live more Nas and his jazz influence on the game, man, for sure. Yeah. And give us what would you say the state of general jazz is at the moment when you look at jazz, the state of the industry, as they call it, the genre?
Well, the state of the industry is tough, as we were saying about the streaming thing. That's the hard thing. I think the jazz scene is pretty healthy. It's pretty varied, definitely. There's all kinds of things out there at the moment, which is good. You have to dig for it, though, because it's kind of... but it's all there. Like we were saying about the streaming thing, from a point of view of a consumer, it's all there if you can find it, if you know where to look. I think there's a lot of exciting live stuff going on.
Wow. And what would you say, you gave a bit of advice earlier to young musicians, but I wanted a bit of a deeper one where a philosophy like integrity, philosophy that you live by, something you stand on, like a life gem, a quote that's you and sums up, you know.
Well, I once read something that said the only difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people didn't give up. You know, because, you know, my success was a long time coming. It was certainly was not an overnight success. I'd been taking cassette tapes in the 80s to every A&R man's office there was to go in London. And what they used to say to you, they would say, I like it, but I like to hear some more, which was their way of saying, I'm not giving you any money, but I think you might have something interesting here, and I want you to come back next time. So go away and spend your own money doing it, and bring it back. But yeah, I spent like a long time hustling and trying to get going, really get things going. In the end, what happened was there was a real logical progression to what came about, which is that I got fed up of hearing this by taking stuff to A&R Men's office. So I thought, being a bit arrogant at the time, I was thinking, I know better than you. So, because I was DJing at the time out, and I thought, I know what's going on. So I pressed up 500 copies of a white label of a track and literally carried it around all the record stores in the West End when there was a lot more record stores than there is now. And that got us to the attention of Ninja Tune, which was quite a fledgling, smaller label at the time, obviously run by Matt and John, the Cold Cut crew. And then they gave us a deal, just a one-off deal, and a deal of track. The band played the boogie, that sampled a Blue Note track, and that got us to the attention of Blue Note. So I went from like taking tapes to A&R Men record labels and getting turned down to thinking, hang on, I need to take this in hand and do it myself, to pressing up the white labels. That got me an independent deal, and that got me a major deal. So it was quite a logical step. But if I hadn't have taken that first step myself of pressing up the white labels, the rest of it wouldn't have happened. So that's what I'm saying about you need to keep going. Yeah. Don't give up.
Yeah, that's the real talk.
Because you don't know where it's going to lead to.
That's the real talk. You can't get realer than that, you know?
Yeah.
That's just real grind.
Put stuff out because you don't know who's listening.
And also, I think as well with artists, don't be afraid of feedback. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Don't avoid it. Like, don't think that, don't stay in your room with all this music you've got and you're in your head overthinking it.
Yeah.
You're not letting no one hear it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll never forget, actually, Matt Black from the Cold Cut crew sat me down before the band Play the Boogie came out, sat me down and gave me a pep talk and said, look, this is different. What you're putting out is different, and it's going to shake things up a bit. And people might be upset about the fact that you've mixed up jazz and hip hop together, and you're going to get some criticism for it. But don't let it get you down. Just keep going, keep believing in yourself. And it was a really good pep talk. And obviously, thinking about it now, he must have been through something like that from things that the Cold Cut crew had done before. And he was absolutely right. It was like a voice of experience, but it was really good advice for me at the time.
Wow. And on that note, man, you know, you've had a great conversation. We've been talking jazz with the legend, you know, Geoff Wilkinson here. And I always like to end with like, these are, I call them two randoms, you know, just off topic.
Okay.
Two randoms. So the first random is, if you had to be a boxer, a wrestler, or a footballer, which one would you be and why?
I'd be a footballer, definitely.
And why is that, sir?
I'm not into boxing or wrestling.
And with the football, what position would you play?
Well, I used to play right wing when I was a kid. So Leeds were my team because I'm from Yorkshire.
Wow.
And Peter Lorimer from the 70s was like the big Leeds right winger. So I would kind of, when I was playing football as a kid, I'd imagine myself as him.
Yeah, big shout to Leeds. I got family over there, so big love to Leeds. And the other second random, the second one we going with is, if you had one voiceover job that would send a message to the world on every TV and internet device, what would be that sentence?
Wow. Don't believe everything you see online or in the news. Think for yourself.
Wow, that's sharp. You got to make the most of all that exposure, right? Yeah, appreciate you being a sport and playing the 2 random questions
No problem.
vibe there, just a bit off topic. So what's next for you, man? What's next, man?
I'm just December, the music business tends to close down a bit, really. So that's when I have a bit of a sort of housekeeping in the studio, look at unfinished tracks and stuff and decide what I'm going to do for the next year. So that's usually what I do in December, actually. So I'm just doing that and winding down a bit for Christmas, to be honest.
Sure. And any final words to the audience?
Yeah, follow Us3 on Instagram. It's my new Instagram page. Obviously, I'd sort of dropped off the radar a bit in terms of social media because before I put the soundtrack out this year, the previous album that came out in 2013, a lot of social media didn't exist then.
Yeah, sure.
Streaming didn't exist then. So it was a real learning curve putting soundtrack out this year because the industry has changed. So I only set up an Instagram page this year, and that's a Us3 official one.
Wow.
So there's lots of old stuff and new stuff on there as well.
Wow. And that being said, it's JazzHop, the December edition. Myself, Dan Blake, with the legendary Geoff Wilkinson from Us3. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.